St. Patrick's Day. I'm Emma Kate, I'm 11 years old, and sometimes dads can be so annoying. Pastor Lisa invited me to speak to you all today. At first, I was really stressed and I thought, what if I don't do well? What if I'm too young to be doing this? But the truth is, I'm really not. As 1 Timothy reminds us, don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in life, in love, in faith, and in purity. In the Bible, Samuel was referred to as just a boy when God called him. And it was believed that Mary was only 13 when God gave birth to Jesus through her. And David wasn't even considered old enough to be a soldier when God called him. When Solomon was 20 years old, he became the king of Israel. But for all of us, the point is that God doesn't use you in spite of your age. He wants to use you because of your age and because of who you are. God wants to meet each and every one of us, exactly as we are, exactly where we are in life. In fact, God will give us opportunities. There are so many opportunities for young and old people to give and minister to God. We all need each other. We each offer a fresh perspective and a different approach. And nowhere is this togetherness clearer than in an educational road trip. Some people might call it a vacation. Some parents might call it a nightmare. Are we there yet? I'm not going to tell you what us kids call it, but let me ask you a question. How many of you have ever taken your kids out on a vacation? What about an educational vacation? Good, then my mom and dad aren't the only bad parents here. What they do is they take us somewhere that they think is fun yet educational and make us keep a journal and write about it for school. While I don't always appreciate it at the time, it does help me think about the journey itself instead of just wondering, are we there yet? Sometimes I think it's really easy for us to have an are we there yet faith when you don't actually think about the journey as equal to the destination. Spending forever in heaven is what all of us want to do, I hope. But in the meantime, we should focus on doing God's work here on earth, like improving people's life by being a friend, serving them, and giving them hope. But faith is a journey. The journey is just as important as the destination itself, and can be as long as those of us who have gone on road trips know. So, if we know this, we shouldn't be asking ourselves, are we there yet? Instead, we should be asking, what do I need to do during my journey to get me ready for the destination ahead of me? This journey is to follow Christ and become a Christian in action, and all of us are called. All of us, whether we choose to respond to it or not. Remember the video of me in my natural habitat? The Bible verse on my wall relates to that. It says, I command you to be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. I want to remember this verse when the journey gets hard. This verse has helped me step up and seize the opportunity that I wouldn't have been brave enough to do in the first place, like right now, here today. Frederick Buechner described our call as followers of Christ as where one's greatest joy meets the world's greatest need. When you think about all the needs in the world, what do you think of? Where does your greatest joy meet the world's greatest need? When you think about that, you realize how much we are needed. On my wall, the quote from Theodore Roosevelt states, that nothing worth having was ever achieved without effort. Our Salt and Light verse today tells us that we need to share the love of Christ through others in what we do, and that it will take effort. Another verse that says this is Colossians 3:23, which says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as doing it for the Lord, not for human masters. This verse is telling me that whatever I choose to do, whether it be a doctor, a pastor, or a stay-at-home mom, I need to put fire into it, knowing that I'm doing it for God. Another saying on my wall is, Dance like no one's watching. Love like you've never been hurt. Sing like no one's listening. And live like heaven is on earth. I like this whole saying, but I want to talk about living like heaven is on earth for a minute. God helped me understand this a couple of years ago when some kids from church and our parents went on a mission trip to New York City. There was a lot of preparation involved. Some of the members of our church made or bought some warm flannel blankets for people on the streets in New York City. These were handed out to people staying in a homeless shelter during the day and people living on the streets at night. While we were there, we also had the chance to meet some of the homeless people and help out in a super awesome food pantry. It was like a grocery store. The people who came there were treated with dignity and respect. They came as families and individuals, but they left as people loved and cared for by God and the church. They were blessed to be a blessing, and through that they blessed me. I also got to do a little sightseeing on the way, but the coolest part of all was seeing how these people lived, seeing them in their natural habitat. It really helped me understand how they've truly felt and lived. The mission trip also let me see God working through others and in me. This trip to New York City was the trip that began a new part of my journey. God was calling me in a new way, and God put fire in my bones, as Pastor Adam Hamilton would say. I was convinced that I wanted to serve God through leading missions. God was helping me figure it out. My dad says that sometimes he's still figuring it out. Do you ever feel that way? But through all of this figuring it out, you need to remember that God is with us in the storms. Remember that last saying on my wall? It said, life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. The reason why we can dance in the rain is because God is with us. Have you all heard that poem called Footprints in the Sand? I bet you have many times. It might be a little sappy, but I love that poem. It talks about a man who, in his dream, is on the beach with God. On the beach, he sees flashbacks of his life. In each of the scenes, he often sees two sets of footprints, but sometimes he only sees one. This troubles him because he realized that during the darkest times of his life, he only saw one set of footprints. So he complained to the Lord, asking him why he didn't keep his promise to walk with him through all the times of his life. When God answered him, he explained that during those times of his life, when he only saw one set of footprints, was when God carried him. This poem really speaks to me because it shows that even when we feel and think that God isn't with us, he is. Sometimes when I pray, I feel God's power all around me. And I know that he is there, just like I know that air is all around me too. This is the God we follow, a God that is always with us on the journey, calling us, not to an are we there yet faith, but to a faith that is better for the journey, a faith that is growing on the journey, so that we are growing together on the journey. I want to show you a short scene from one of my favorite movies, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. In this scene, little Lucy comes to realize that Aslan will be there for her when she needs him on her journey, just like God will be there for us. I hope that all the kids at CORE will continue to love God, know God, and serve God. That is the journey. We can help them in their faith by teaching them that faith is a journey, an important journey, a journey that isn't about are we there yet, a journey that takes courage, a journey that isn't always easy, a journey that helps us live like heaven is on earth, a journey that God is with us for. We need to give kids the opportunity to learn this for themselves. If they get the opportunity, kids are capable of really knowing God. I'm glad that here at CORE, we don't have to pretend that God is a fluffy stuffed animal. We don't have to dumb down the message for kids to want to know and love God. In Narnia, even Lucy, the littlest of them all, can understand that Aslan can be good, but not tame. God is a great God, but he is not a tame God. And we shouldn't ever try to tame God, but instead, we should try to become wild and called, created in God's image. May we journey into the wild and never try to tame it